Hey guys, thanks for joining me. In today's tie-in video, I'm excited to share with you the Semperfli Straggle Leg Damselfly Nymph pattern. This one I'll be utilizing some select marabou plumes in olive green. It's for the tail and the abdomen. For the head and case of this fly, I'm using some sow scudback in 2mm size. For the ribbing section, I'll be using UTC Ultra Wire, size small. This is gold color. And to wrap this all together, none other than the Semperfli Nano Silk 30 denier. This is olive color. Some of my favorite tying threads. Super strong, doesn't create any bulk. And then for the eyes, I'm doing some burnt monofilament eyes. This is 20-pound trilene monofilament. It makes a super realistic and really small mono eye for this. For the hook size, none other than Togen's curved nymph hook. This one I'm using is a size 14. I as well will tie these in a size 16. Gives it a nice sort of curved profile, very similar to some of the natural damselfly nymphs that you see in the water swimming around. Just begin your tying thread, get that onto the hook shank, bring it back about midway of this fly, and then strip away a few strands of the select marabou. You can make your tail a little bit longer if you need, and if you find that the fish are short striking this fly, you can always pinch off just some of the tips of the tail. I do like keeping the tips in there as they add a little bit extra movement, and the fish just go crazy for this fly. I'm gonna take a quick moment here to explain how I effectively fish this fly. So typically I'll use a intermediate clear camo line or a type 1-3 sink rate fly line, and depending on what water column depth I'm seeing the fish activity in, you can time your sink rate and make sure that the fly gets down to those depths, and then you'll want to retrieve it with a 1 to 2 inch strips a few times over those, and then pause. And usually on the pause, the fish will come and hammer this thing. You can also do a slow hand twist retrieve. That's very effective as well. The tail fibers create a ton of movement, and the straggle legs as well. The fish can sense that in their lateral line, and they'll come over to check out what's going on. So as you can see, I've tied in my tail fibers. I've included the wire rib and brought that back to just about the bend of this hook, and then using the tips of the marabou, I've tied in those tips with a good fair amount of clump. And here you're going to want to take a short, about 1/2 inch piece of your monofilament, and then grab that in your tweezers and singe each end of that. It creates a very nice mono eye for this. Set that aside to dry, and then take about a 2-inch strip of your scudback and get that tied in right at the head of this fly. Make sure that it's nice and centered, and then that'll give the monofilament eyes a chance to cool. And then while they're still in the bead tweezers there, I like to give it a couple of wraps. That way you're not dropping it all on the floor and having to make a lot of these things. With that technique, using the lighter, it gives it almost an amber burnt edge to the outside of these eyes, and then it transitions to a nice green. And I've noticed that very closely imitates what the naturals have with that kind of a translucent green eye. So once that's happy, you can do a 1 to 2 turn whip finish and tuck that out of the way into the bobbin cradle. And then with these marabou fibers, you can do one of two things. You can either twist them up like I've done here. It creates a more buggier look and a little bit of a thicker body, or you can keep the strands flat and wrap them up the shank of the hook, and that'll give it a little bit more of a slimmer profile. Have kind of a few of each of these tied that way, and then you're ready for whatever the fish are keying in on, whether they want a little bit more of a buggier, fibrous, haggard looking one, or a little bit more streamlined than two. You've got all those bases covered. Bring that up a little bit always, and then using a 1 to 2 turn whip finish, lock that and get that thread out of the way. And then here we're going to counter wrap the ultra wire, and you can kind of work that wire through the fibers so that you avoid capturing a lot of those little marabou fibers. Wiggle it as you go, and then once you're happy with that, you can just helicopter that out of there, and then we're going to go and lock this thread off to make sure that that's not going anywhere. And here's where the secret sauce comes in. This stuff is pretty sweet. One of my favorite products from Semperfli. These are their Straggle legs. It says lichen color, and it really closely ties into the olive color of this marabou that I'm using. So grab about a 6-inch piece of that, and then tie it in and get your thread secured and into the bobbin cradle. And then as you're working this, you can pull some of those straggle leg fibers down and primp and preen as much as you want. And then when I get around the eyes of this fly, I do a figure 8 pattern, and then I'll usually lock it off in behind those eyes, and it makes sure that it doesn't slip anywhere. It's a nice secure way to tie this in. Carefully trim away the excess there, and then you're going to wrap that scud back as kind of the top of this fly in around the head and the thorax area. That's what the naturals have, as kind of a clear, hard head and thorax on top. And once you're happy with that, just trim away your thread. And then I trim these on kind of a 45-degree angle. Gives it a really nice imitative look to it. And then you can take a little bit of time of just primping and preening and making sure that that's all happy. For the final touch, I'm going to use some Golf Thinman resin. This is just going to make sure that that nano silk doesn't slip. And so you just want to go right on the back and tie that in. It'll add a little bit of durability to where you've whip finished and trimmed away your thread, and it will last a lot of fish. And then you can give it a zap with your UV light, make sure that that's cured properly, and then take some time to use your bodkin, and you can pull out any of those captured fibers. I want to give a special thank you to Togen's Fly Shop, Semperfli, and Broken Tippet Fly Company. You guys have been so generous to me. I really appreciate all the support. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Hope you learned something, and we'll see you on the waters.